Welcome back to another episode of the Brown Sugar Cafe podcast, the place where poetry meets conversation. I'm your host, Terrence P. Elmore, and before we get into today's topic, make sure you hit that plus sign so you don't miss an episode. Also, please subscribe to my blog, theBrownSugarCafe.blog, and if you find any value in this episode or any other episodes, make sure you leave a heartfelt review. So with that being said, let's get to it. This is the first podcast of 2022. So, Happy New Year to you all. I hope that your year is starting off right. And if you don't think it's starting off right, then I hope that this can help you put the steps in action so you could turn everything around. With the beginning of a new year, there is just a lot of excitement, a lot of buzz going around. A lot of people are feeling inspired, reaching and grabbing and looking for things to help keep them motivated, help keep them inspired. And a lot of people are changing, elevating, so to speak, from where they were before. So I want to talk about that today. I want to talk about the act of elevating in comparison to just being all over the place. Now, when you elevate or you grow, you reach a different place of understanding that helps uplift you and it helps empower and better the people around you. That's what I see as growth. So sometimes we get into things and we find out that those places weren't for us. We weren't growing in those places, and they flat out didn't serve us. So we change. Even with careers, some people change careers. It seems like they're changing careers every so often. They're still trying to find that place, and that's understandable. But we should be mindful if we're just redirecting or reinventing ourselves compared to just being all over the place. When you're redirecting yourself and reinventing yourself, you have a plan. You've sat down, you've assessed where you are, you've looked at everything around you, you've come to the conclusion that what you're currently doing is not working for you. It's not a place of you just being tired or you being bored with where you are or just wanting to change. Because if you continuously do that without actually growing in the place that you were or are currently, you're just going to keep jumping around without any growth. It's you can't keep doing the same things and think just because you switch positions or places where you are doing these things that they're going to make a big difference because they aren't. And so I want you to actually think about before you get out here and start reinventing yourself, recreating yourself. Is it necessary? Is it going to serve you? Is it going to serve others? Especially if you're out there. I talked about this in my last podcast. If you're an entrepreneur and you're jumping into the entrepreneurial space and you've tapped into several different things, still trying to find that one thing that fits you, that serves you. If you have a clientele or a customer base, they can tell your authenticity when you're doing something. They can tell if you're just trying to go with fads or trying to be relevant. And there's a difference between being trendy. I think like following the trends and fads, being a part of them, not being left behind, and gimmicky, where you're just trying to do certain things or be a part of certain things just to attract people, without any real intention of serving them or providing them with anything better. Like you can't be gimmicky and think that you're going to reach people. I mean, it's a way to do different things. It's a way to follow the trends to reach a bigger audience, but you still have to be authentic to yourself. You still have to be authentic to your brand and authentic to the people that you serve. When I first started my blog, I started off with just writing poems about love. And that has transitioned into not just poems about love, but now I'm writing poems about positive things, things to inspire and uplift people. When I decided to do this podcast, I want to stick with the same thing, the messages of, hope, love, and inspiration. I wanted to be congruent. I wanted there to be some consistency with no matter what I'm doing. And so even with my latest project, I'm writing about it's going to be a collection of poems as well. It's going to be more lifestyle, but it's going to be more geared towards men. And it's going to be my experience as a man, as a black man. But there's still going to be messages in there about inspiration and hope and some educational and uplifting things in there. So no matter what I'm doing, and I'm in that same position of love, hope, and inspiration. And so if you're out there with the brand and you're branding yourself and you're trying to get your name out there and you can't quite find what you want to do, that's fine. If you can't, like, if you don't quite know what you're good at and you don't quite know what your purpose is, because a lot of people feel in order to be out there, in order to be doing something, they must be purpose driven. But the truth of the matter is, a lot of us really don't fully know or understand our purpose, because our purpose changes. It changes depending on whatever season we're in our life, whatever stage we're in our life. And that's okay. Sometimes we don't realize when the shift happens and then we feel lost or confused. But if you're doing something publicly and your whole message is to reach people and to impact people, you have to be careful about jumping all over the place, because there's a huge difference between reinventing yourself and just jumping all over the place because you look confused. Your message is confused. The people following you are confused. And let me also say this: make sure you keep people around you who hold you accountable for who you are and what you stand for. It's nothing worse than having a bunch of yes men around you who agree with everything you say. You can't grow like that. You can't grow just having conversations with people who have the same ideas as you, the same thoughts as you, the same views as you. You have to expand your conversation with people. You have to expand the things you're exposing yourself to. You can't always read the same type of books. You can't always watch the same type of movies. You can't always watch the same type of television shows if you want to grow. Like, your growth is going to, you still can grow. I'm not going to say that you're going, you can't grow at all, but your growth is going to be limited if you don't expand your mind and expand the things that you're focused on, like your conversation. A lot of people are on this thing about unfollowing people, unfriending people, to protect their peace. And I'm all for protecting your peace, but you have to have an honest conversation with yourself. Are you unfollowing these people and unfriending these people? Is it really because they've said something to offend you? Or is it really because they've said something that starts you thinking bigger than you've thought before? It starts you thinking about things that you never thought about before, and that scares you. And you rather sit in your comfort zone of doing the same thing over and over again without getting any different results. You're reinventing yourself, quote unquote, but you're all over the place. There's no reinvention. You're just doing the same thing in different places. Your audience may have changed here and there, but you're in the truth of the matter is you're still receiving the same results. So when it comes to reinventing yourself, like really, truly reinventing yourself, take an assessment for where you are at this moment. Write it down. Write the pros and the cons of where you are. What were you doing last year and what were your results? Because if you're trying to do the same thing you did last year, you're going to get the same results this year. You have to switch up some stuff and change some stuff, but make it make sense. There has to be some sort of congruency. Now, if things have changed for you and you have to hustle and do what you have to do to support yourself and your family, then by all means, I'm not saying that. But if you're out here and you're just trying different things, trying to feel yourself, and then trying to keep the same audience, and you want support from people, and then people, they're just trying to figure out too, like, what are you doing? Where are you going with everything? And some people get tired of that. They're just confused. They're just like, okay, well, when you figure it out, then I'll support you. But I've supported you in all these different things, and it seems like my support is hurting you more than helping you. Even if you're not a person that's doing this, but you're witnessing somebody who seems to be all over the place and not really honing into their skills, you need to have a conversation with. If you care about them, you need to be able to have a conversation, a conversation from, not from a judgmental place, but a place of help. You're trying to help them out. Like, hey, let's talk. Like, I see you doing this, and this, but now it seems like you're just all over the place and you've lost where you began, why you started. Let's sit down, have a conversation. Let's figure out what's going on. Like, what's going on? Where are you trying to go with this? A lot can change when we have conversations with the people who truly know us and we're willing to receive whatever they say. If they're coming off respectful and coming from a place to help us in a place because they know that we can do better and they know that we're all over the place and we're not sticking to our guns and doing what we're supposed to do, we need to be open to having those conversations. So in order to reinvent yourself, you have to actually look at where you are now. You may think you're doing one thing, but you really need to assess and understand if you're actually doing the opposite. And what if reinventing yourself is just going back to the same thing that hurt you in the first place? Because sometimes reinventing yourself is going back to the drawing board, starting from scratch, and that's cool. But what did you do the first time that you need to change this time? And everybody's talking about pivot right now. Pivot here, you got to pivot, you got to pivot. But pivot from where? Where are you pivoting from? Are you out of bounds and not even in the game pivoting? Did you just get the ball and now you're trying to pivot to find out which direction to go? Or did you pick up your dribble too early and now you're pivoting, trying to figure out what to do with the ball? Too afraid to pass it off because don't want to be embarrassed or you don't want to look foolish because you've done something and stepped into an arena that you weren't ready for. So do you pass the ball and then until you can move up the court and get the ball back? Or are you pivoting because now you're at the basket and you're ready to shoot? You're just trying to find the right direction to shoot. Don't be that person pivoting because you've picked up your dribble too early and now you're just going around in circles trying to figure out what to do with the ball. Pivot where it makes sense. Like it's a new year. You didn't have to wait until a new year to start new things. And if you did, or if you haven't started yet, then start today. If you're hearing this podcast, then it's not too late. Stop being hard on yourself. You set this goal, this time where you were supposed to start something you haven't started yet. Okay, you can start now. And it doesn't have to be like the beginning of the week, like a Monday. We like to say, well, I'll start Monday. Start now. Start today. Start tonight. I think people have even gotten away from saying I'll start tomorrow. It's like, well, I'll start at the beginning of the week. No, start now. If you can do any type of steps or make any type of progress to do something, start now. Stop making excuses for yourself and stop procrastinating. Stop waiting. And if you're going to reinvent yourself, make sure it makes sense. Take the time to assess where you are, see what changes need to be made. You might not need to make any changes at all. Maybe you're trying to reinvent yourself too early. That's why you have to sit and take a realistic assessment. You have to look, and then you have to look at metrics. You have to assess where you are so you can see what areas you need to grow, what areas you need to improve in. So you may have to look at your engagement if you're on social media and stuff like that. Not necessarily your followers, but see what's working and what's not working so you can make the proper adjustments. And so you can do what you need to do to reach a bigger audience, to impact more people. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Brown Sugar Cafe podcast. Once again, I'm your host, Terrence P. Elmore, and this is the place where poetry meets conversation. Hit that follow button and turn on your notifications so you won't miss an episode. Check out my blog, thebrownsugarcafe.blog. Also connect with me on Instagram at thebrownsugarcafe. Hope you enjoyed this episode, and as always, remember, keep pushing forward.